There's a news story I read that I just can't forget. It starts back in 1968, Belmont, Massachusetts. Daryl Davis was 10 and the only black boy in his Boy Scout troop marching in a parade. From the crowd, racist white spectators threw bottles, rocks, and trash at him. Daryl couldn't figure it out. How can you hate me when you don't even know me? Daryl Davis became a professional blues pianist. He jammed with the greats, Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis, B.B. King. Flash forward to 1983, Frederick, Maryland. Daryl was playing at a bar. The band takes a break, and a white guy approaches Daryl. "This is the first time I ever heard a black man play piano like Jerry Lee Lewis." Daryl tells him Jerry Lee had picked up his style from black blues and boogie-woogie musicians. The man buys Daryl a drink, and they get talking. He confesses to Daryl, "You know, this is the first time I ever sat down and had a drink with a black man." The confessions keep coming. The white guy says, "I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan." Daryl busts out laughing. Of course the man's joking. But the man pulls a card from his wallet, his KKK membership card. The guy is literally a card-carrying racist. Time for Daryl to get up and leave, right? But Daryl thinks, the guy is really friendly, and they'd found common ground in music. So Daryl stayed put, and at closing time, another surprise. The white guy said, anytime Daryl be playing at this bar, he'd come hear him. Eventually, Daryl and the man became close friends. It became impossible for the man to continue believing all the racist generalizations about black people he'd carried with him for a lifetime. His hatred for black people just didn't compute anymore. This incredible transformation started a pretty wild hobby for Daryl. He went around the country asking Klan leaders and members his big question from his Boy Scout days. How can you hate me when you don't even know me? Now, as you can imagine, these Klan members said some vile, gut-churning stuff. But Daryl had a plan. He was there to ask sincere questions and to listen. And through that, he did something incredible. Just like with that man at the bar, Daryl got all these racists to change their minds about black people. Many quit the KKK, disavowing their former hateful beliefs. As Daryl explains it, the cement that held these men's racist ideas together began to get cracks in it, then crumble, and then fall apart. People say Daryl converted these men, but Daryl says they converted themselves. He explained to a reporter that when you're actively learning about someone else, you're passively teaching them about yourself. Notice what I didn't say about Daryl. He didn't do what probably most of us do in an argument. Go in, ready to do battle, hammering the other person with how right we are. Admittedly, Daryl Davis is a conflict resolution superhero, somehow willing himself to stay mum while a bunch of bigots jaw on. Few of us could do the same. But the truth is, Daryl is just a natural at using a simple technique any of us can use to resolve conflict. Listen to learn instead of fighting to win. I've been moved over and over at how transformative this technique is, both in my own life and in my work as a volunteer mediator at the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office. Now, in mediation, we facilitate the sort of listening to understand that Daryl uses. A vital part of this is our creating an environment in which people will hear each other. This allows them to understand each other and then empathize with each other, which paves the way to resolution and even relationship repair. Now, I have to warn you, some of the subjects we deal with can sound trivial, but leaving these disputes to fester can lead to terrible consequences. In a Los Angeles suburb, one neighbor was mad about video cameras the other had pointed at his house. The neighbor with the cameras was mad about the other's unleashed dog, plus noise and loud music. Tragically, this case never came to mediation. The parties just got angrier and angrier, and then a gun came out. A 26-year-old father of 3, Christian Alarcon, was shot and killed by his neighbor. This could have worked out so differently if only they'd been able to do as Daryl does. Sit down and listen to learn instead of fighting to win. Take another ongoing feud between neighbors, a man and the older woman next door over her trash bins being left out long after the trash got picked up. Tensions escalated, and they came in for mediation. The man shared how disrespected he felt at her trash bins being left out. He was the first in his family to go to college and get a professional job, and he took great pride in his house and yard. It galled him to have his view mucked up by a bunch of trash bins and to have to get out of his car to move them out of the way. Then the woman spoke. She said, "You're right. You shouldn't have to put up with those trash bins being left out." She said she'd move them in herself, but she has arthritic hands. Her home health aide rolls the bins out, but she isn't there to bring them back. The woman said, "My son is supposed to bring them in, but he has a drug problem." And she started to cry. You could see the tension just dissipate right out of the man's body. He said, "I had no idea. I saw those trash bins as a message I was being sent. You don't like it? Too bad. And now I see that wasn't the case." This understanding transformed the man's anger into a desire to help. He now takes pride in bringing the woman's bins in for her every week. Now, in addition to listening to learn instead of fighting to win, 2 tactics help us stay in a mindset where resolution is possible. Strike when the iron is cold, and slow cook your way to resolution. Strike when the iron is cold helped in a marital mediation. Now, the marriage was happy, except the husband couldn't say no to his daughter from his first marriage, and it was breaking the bank and upsetting his new wife. The daughter was a spendthrift party girl with a drinking problem and multiple DUIs, and her dad enabled her by paying her way out of her problems. His new wife got angry each time he pulled out his checkbook, and the husband got angry back and stood his ground. There was no possibility of listening to each other and no possibility of resolution. But they resolved this in mediation just a few days after their most current quarrel, when the heat of the moment was removed from the equation. The husband, by being able to listen to his wife, came to see that he was avoiding pain in the short term by paying his daughter's way out of her troubles. The couple set up boundaries he used with the daughter, but more importantly, they learned that they could lovingly resolve conflict themselves if only they'd strike when the iron is cold. You can use this tactic whenever things get heated between you and another person. Strike when the iron is cold by putting a heated discussion on pause for 10 minutes, an hour, or even a day. Walk around the block, set a time to talk the next morning, or just take breaks for a few minutes whenever a discussion veers into the angry zone. Being mindful that rushing resolution is completely counterproductive brings us to the second vital tactic: slow cook your way to resolution. Sometimes it takes a series of conversations over time before, as Daryl says, walls start to crumble. Take former President Ronald Reagan, who turned the former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev into his pen pal. Through this written relationship, 38 letters sent between 1985 and 1988, these two leaders of nuclear powers came to understand each other's priorities and fears and saw a shared duty to work together for peace. As Reagan put it in one of his letters, "Our differences are many, and we will need to proceed in a way that takes both differences and common interests into account. But history places on us a very heavy responsibility for maintaining and strengthening peace, and I'm convinced we have before us new opportunities to do so." What Reagan said, that we have a responsibility to resolve our differences peacefully, that's true for each of us. Whether we are two people with a disagreement or two nuclear-powered nations, we can use these tactics to transform our never-ending battles into opportunities for understanding. I'll end with one of the most inspiring photos I've ever seen of some laundry on a couch. It's a small sample of Daryl Davis's collection of KKK robes given to him by all of the members who left the KKK, resigned from hate. If Daryl Davis can listen to learn with card-carrying racists, surely we can follow his lead and transform our next-door enemy combatants into next-door neighbors and maybe even friends. Thank you.